Mr. Winward is here representing Ms. Franke. Let's bring her out. And Mr. Clark and Mr. Sham are here representing the state of Utah. Ms. Franke is now here. Mr. Winward, we are scheduled for a waiver hearing. Is there going to be a waiver today?
There will, plus a plea agreement, Your Honor.
All right.
I'll ask the bailiff to hand you if it's been executed.
All right. Mr. Winward, you have discussed with Ms. Franke a preliminary hearing, what's involved in a preliminary hearing. She understands she has a right to a preliminary hearing on all of the charges in the case. She understands what the charges are, and she's prepared to waive a preliminary hearing in the case on all charges.
She is, and that is contained in this agreement on page 7 as well.
Very good. All right, I've been handed a plea agreement, and it appears to be signed by Ms. Franke. Ms. Franke, did you sign this agreement?
Yes.
And you did that today? When did you sign it?
On the 18th.
Okay. You've read it carefully?
Every word.
Your signature represents to the court that you've read it carefully, that you understand what you've read, and that you agree to all of the terms. Is that all accurate?
Yes.
You've had sufficient time to ask questions of your counsel, to go over any questions you have. You're ready to go forward.
Yes.
You don't need any more time.
I'm ready.
Ms. Franke, is anyone pressuring you to enter into this agreement?
No.
Anyone promising you anything I haven't been told about?
No.
Anything that's not in the written plea agreement?
No.
Are you under the influence of alcohol or drugs today?
No.
Is there anything today that could in any way interfere with your ability to understand the agreement, its consequences, anything?
No.
No physical condition, no medication, nothing?
No.
Any further record, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Winward, we ready to proceed?
We are ready to proceed.
All right, then. Ms. Franke, how do you plead to count 1, aggravated, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 3, aggravated, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 5, aggravated, second-degree felony?
Guilty.
And to count 6, aggravated, second-degree felony?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
There is a factual basis set forth in the agreement that is a stipulated factual basis, counsel?
That's correct, Your Honor. That is correct, Judge Walton.
The court finds that the factual basis is sufficient. All of the terms of the agreement are stipulated, including that the court obtain a pre-sentence investigation report, correct?
Correct.
There won't be any argument about whether prison is the appropriate sentence, and there's an agreement about the 4 counts running consecutive.
That is correct.
All right. The court finds then that Ms. Franke's pleas are made knowingly and voluntarily. The court therefore accepts and enters those pleas. The court orders the preparation of a pre-sentence investigation report to be prepared by AP&P and the Department of Corrections. Counsel, what about sentencing on February 20th? I think, do you and your client agree to waive time, counsel?
We do agree to waive time, Your Honor.
February 20th, I believe, is a Tuesday. Is that right? – 10 a.m.?
That works for us, Your Honor.
All right. Anything else for today?
Your Honor, maybe I've heard the court say this several times in a different fashion. We are not binding the court to any specific sentence, and the court retains its right to sentence as it sees fit. I just mentioned that this is not a Rule 11 plea, but although it's a stipulated statement of defendant.
Counsel, approach, please. All right, anything else for today?
No, Judge.
Nothing from the state.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. We are in recess.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Ruby Franke was back in court today. Her hearing lasted only 4 minutes long, but during that time, she pled guilty to 4 of the 6 counts against her. The sentencing is scheduled for February 20th at 10 a.m. Franke, who is 41 years old, is well known for her now deleted 8 Passengers YouTube channel. She was arrested back in August, and I have been following this case from the beginning, and it is complex. There are so many twists and turns that go along with it. In a statement, Franke's lawyer said that she, meaning Ruby, is aware that her husband has filed for divorce and she is devastated, but acknowledges and understands her husband's anger and reasoning. Franke's brother, Bo, sister Julie, and both of her parents attended the hearing. Franke made eye contact and smiled at them as she entered and exited the courtroom. The family members declined to comment, as you can imagine. And now that she's pled guilty, it'll be interesting to see what her sentence will be. Many parts of this case still are rummaging around through my mind. And the question is, did she know? Did she know better? Or was she going 100% on the faith of her therapist, Jodi Hildebrant? Did Jodi Hildebrant brainwash her into these allegations? According to Jodi's niece, she is very capable of brainwashing and abusing people who she is supposedly giving therapy to. It appears that Ruby is now playing the "don't blame me, blame Jodi." I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Jodi is to blame? Do you think that because Jodi's a licensed therapist, she is more culpable? Let's listen to her niece explain her opinion of Jodi.
She would tell me all the time, if you just confess, I will stop. If you confess, I will stop, which is, Jodi is very smart in how she approaches her therapeutic modalities because they are so extreme. If she were just to start out with those things, everyone would recognize it and they would be shocked and it'd be like, absolutely not. But she's very subtle. She's very subtle and she's very calculated. So she strips you of identity, she strips you of credibility, and she isolates. And so she's saying everything that you say is a lie. Everything that you say is manipulation. You're manipulating everyone around you. You're lying and destroying everyone's life.
I've been covering this story from the beginning, and this is the question that I had from day one. Who's to blame? Jodi, Ruby, or Kevin? Or a combination of the three? Let me give you just a little piece of Kevin's attorney's opinion.
She was the one recommending to almost a majority of her clients that in order to repair their families and repair their marriages, they needed to be separated. They needed to live apart because in her view, Kevin was lustful and Kevin was greedy and Kevin was self-absorbed. None of which was true. But through her therapeutic manipulation, she convinced him that he has characteristics and that if he stayed at home, he was going to poison the family.
I also did an in-depth interview with a therapist talking about the strategies that both Ruby and Jodi were using and how destructive they were.
The client is the expert of their life. When you consider the client an expert in their own life, they're a part of setting the goals for therapy, right? You don't, as a therapist, say, these are your goals. Like,
Oh, yeah.
they're a part of setting those goals, and it's what we call client-centered therapy, where they help determine what those goals are, and they get to determine what they want to work on and what they want to improve in their life. It's not up to a therapist to dictate, these are your goals, these are the things you should do, and these are the things that you shouldn't do. I mean, dual relationship, the abuse of one's power, the not having the unconditional positive regard, not allowing the client to be an expert in their own life, and clearly crossing a lot of boundaries in that therapeutic relationship.
Ruby's therapist, who was her family therapist, became her business partner. The mother of 6, who used to have a YouTube channel called 8 Passengers, which she shut down, and then she started parenting classes with her business partner, Ruby. The judge was Judge John Walton, and he accepted the plea agreement and then scheduled the sentencing. The agreement leaves the sentencing up to the judge and does not rule out prison time. Her attorney even acknowledged this. The attorney, Winward Law, announced in a statement Friday that the alleged abuse occurred while Ruby Franke was influenced by the relationship counselor who led her to a distorted sense of morality. This is what I'm talking about, that she is throwing Jodi under the bus, and maybe it's warranted. This is another part of the statement. Ruby Franke is a devoted mother and is also a woman committed to constant improvement. Franke initially believed that Jodi Hildebrant had the insight to offer a path to continual improvement, according to Ruby Franke's lawyers, claiming that Hildebrandt took advantage of this quest and twisted it into something heinous. Hildebrandt systematically isolated Ruby Franke from her extended family, older children, and her husband, Kevin Franke. That's what continues on with the statement. Franke and Hildebrandt were both arrested back in August, and that was after Franke's 12-year-old son was able to escape Hildebrandt's house in southern Utah. And then 911 was called, and this whole thing began. Franke's 10-year-old daughter was also found at Hildebrandt's house. Both children were taken to the hospital. According to Franke's attorney, Ruby has actively engaged in an introspection that has allowed her to reset her moral compass and understand the full weight of her actions. Ms. Franke is committed to taking responsibility for the part she played in the events leading up to her incarceration. End of quote. I don't know. What do you think? Some therapists, namely Jodi, have ruined so many people's lives. Countless couples are now coming forward saying, she destroyed our marriage. She destroyed our family. This has been going on for a long time. But for Ruby, it started 3 years ago. And when she started her crazy rhetoric, she eventually was telling her siblings, telling her family, and because they didn't agree with her, she cut off all ties with them, 100%. They were not given access to her husband, her children. Ruby. I think that Ruby is a narcissist. That's my own personal thoughts. And I think she's been a narcissist. And narcissists seek out all types of things. And I think that there was a time when Ruby was still in contact with her family, with her parents. I'm sure she was still a narcissist then. but it was things that you could deal with and live with. And then when she got that extreme parenting jargon, whatever it is, with Ruby, then her narcissism took over and she fully engulfed it. And then at that point, she cut off all ties with anybody who didn't agree with her, because that's what they do. Look at, we have tape recordings. She herself explains it over and over and over again. She's her own worst witness in this case, or best for the prosecutors, because it's all out there. Let me know your thoughts.
I can't read all the things that Ruby has agreed that she did to her children on YouTube because it is so terrible. But let me just say this. There are many horrendous things. So my question is, if you were to pick between 3 options, I'd love to hear which category she falls under the most. A narcissist, a sociopath, or a victim. Comment below. I'd love to hear everyone's opinion on this case.
And we'll see what happens in the court on
February when she is sentenced. It'll be interesting to see what kind of sentence she gets. How culpable is she? Will she be spending the rest of her life in prison? Or will she get just a few years sentence?